If you've ever traveled internationally like I have, you may have encountered certain types of tourists. There's the Japanese tourists that are just absolute sweethearts, love to take pictures of almost everything, and they they fangirl over anything new and exotic, make you feel as though you're you're on the stage of a J-pop concert and you're the main attraction to them. There's other tourists out there. They're not so nice. As a matter of fact, the idea of good manners and behaving themselves in a way that's not boorish or offensive is just they don't understand. And that's the Chinese tourist. Especially in my time in Japan, I remember I was in the Gotemba Premium Outlets. This is a outlet shopping mall that is near the foot of Mount Fuji. Great place to go shopping. Great place for the day out. They even have a nice new hotel there with a hot spring. Fantastic long weekend getaway. If you are in Japan, I would recommend making a go of it for the long weekend. Do some shopping in the Gotemba Premium Outlets. Stay at the hotel next door. Enjoy the hot springs. Go see Mount Fuji if the weather's just right. You won't regret it. It'll be a good time. When I think I was in a Swarovski boutique, just sort of admiring the trinkets that were available on offer there. Had a group of Chinese tourists come in, and the person I was with was looking at something in a display case there, and then all of a sudden she gets shoved out of the way by these young Chinese women, not necessarily girls, but they were grown women, who just began barking, I think, in broken Japanese and mix of Japanese and Mandarin to the shop staff, demanding to see certain things. And the person I was with and myself, we were quite taken aback by that. Thought them incredibly rude. And I think the person I was with was trying to say something, but it just sort of fell on deaf ears because none of them spoke English. And the person I was traveling with did not speak Mandarin. Yeah, I heard Japanese people cannot stand Chinese tourists. Yes, they don't really get on. I think the people most opposed to Chinese tourism and loosening migration is Chinese people already living here. Most sushi places here and Japanese restaurants are Chinese owned and run. A lot of them have a no service for Chinese policy during the summer. Can you imagine Chinese people not liking Chinese? It almost reminds me of the Indian stockbroker I heard about one time that absolutely refused to take on Indian clients because they kept arguing with him over his fees. Conversely, most Chinese restaurants are owned and run by people from Thailand, the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia. They usually have wok and pad thai on the menu also. Makes sense if they've got people from Thailand and other places running them.
Loud, rude, traveling in enormous packs.
Might need to edit that
buying
out.
Everything in sight and completely ignoring local customs. That's what the Europeans said about the American tourists in the 1950s.
The ugly American.
Sound familiar? Chinese tourism did 150 million international trips in 2024 and spent over $250 billion doing it. Everyone wants their money, but nobody wants their manners. And look,
Yeah.
I get it. When I'm at Disneyland in Hong Kong with my kids and a tour bus pulls up,
Everyone wants them to spend money, but they don't want to have to deal with the just absolute boorish behavior.
I'm teaching my 5-year-old how to spread out and box out like we're in a basketball game because we've been cut so many times when we just let down our guard. It just sucks the relaxation out of what's supposed to be a fun day at the park. But the hate isn't new and it isn't permanent. I'm John and I've spent weeks digging.
Yeah, it speaks to that portion of the world's mentality. So many Chinese, the culture is built upon scamming. So much of the legends and the lore and the literature, the heroes of the story, oftentimes win the battle by or secure the victory from the war by means of deception. And for some people in China, if you're not cheating, you're doing it wrong. Also, what the hell is up with his glasses? He is wearing granny glasses. These look like glasses that your gran would wear. They really do, especially with the little ornate metal bits. I mean, just put put a chain on them and he probably would look like an old lady.
To tourism data and online threads to understand the question of Chinese tourists. The answer isn't rudeness or culture, it's three
Well, that is
systems
a problem.
colliding. And there's one question that unlocks the whole pattern. How did 5 million travelers become 150 million in just a few decades? But first, what are
An entirely fake and gay economy and people with more money than they do have manners.
people actually angry about?
I mean, we wouldn't... I think a lot of people would not have objections to Chinese tourists if they would just behave themselves. If they would just be better behaved, this would not be a problem.
In 2024, the Chengdu Panda base in China issued 12 lifetime bans to visitors for touching, poking, or throwing objects at the pandas. So
Well, what the actual... This is another thing, is the treatment of animals, especially in China, is abhorrent. Absolutely abhorrent. So many of them just... They have no concept of how to humanely treat animals. Most of us, rightly so, in the Western world, react with shock and horror at even the notion that someone would throw a rock at a panda bear. It's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Number one, that's an endangered species. Number two, it's not a fucking dancing monkey. They're not even technically bears, they're sloths. They're overgrown sloths. They don't move around very much, they don't do very much. They barely even mate as it is. And you think it fun to just throw rocks at them to try to get them to do something. As though there's some sort of act in a circus. It's disgusting.
you know, this behavior isn't just international. Internationally, we've seen a Thai temple close a bathroom after a Chinese tourist defaced it.
When I opened the toilet door, oh my god, it was dirty all around.
In Egypt, a teenager got famous for
It's like, brother man, porcelain bowl is right there. You sit down on it and you have yourself a pee and a poo. This really is not hard. You would think a nation that is supposed to be 1 billion people, but even that is questionable, probably more like 750 million people, would learn to be toilet trained properly. What the actual fuck? Number 3, you live in China. The government will harshly punish anyone that so much as touches a panda wrong. I mean, you would think so. You would think that that's how they would treat it. Much like the Americans do with the bald eagle. But I guess not.
carving names into ancient monuments. In
This too, what the fuck?
A woman threw hot coffee at a barista after a service dispute, and the video went viral globally. And line-cutting reports at Seoul's Incheon airport show up across Korean social media. But here's the thing, these stories
Yeah, that's another thing. Korea, the UK, anywhere that we're big on queuing, do not cut the queue. Do not cut the queue. And honestly, it's probably going to take the Singaporean approach. That if you cut the queue, you're going to get your ass beat. And deservedly so. Oh, that's so mean. Oh, God, so cruel. Maybe. But they're not going to try that again.
represent a fraction of the actual picture. Travel sentiment data from major tourism destinations show that the majority of interactions with Chinese travelers are rated positively, not just acceptable, they're actually actively positive. In other words, there's some real data saying the opposite is true. So what's going on? How can both be true? The math actually explains a lot.
Probably it's one of those things that when they behave themselves, when they're good tourists, they're really, really good. But when they're bad, they're really, really bad. And probably no grey area between them.
Of it, and we'll break down exactly how much later. But the short version is this. When you're the largest outbound tourism source on the planet, your outliers don't just exist. They're everywhere, and they get amplified on social media. The outliers become the story. But scale alone doesn't explain the behavior. For that, we need to understand something that most coverage completely ignores.
Yeah, also not okay, what we just saw
Scale
there.
alone doesn't explain the behavior. For that, we need to understand something that most coverage.
Yeah, that right there. Yeah, Chinese tourists that's shaking a cherry blossom tree, trying to get it to rain the flower petals because they want some fancy photo op that they can put up on whatever is the Chinese equivalent of Instagram or TikTok. This is not okay. You are not to go shaking cherry blossom trees in Japan to try and make it look like a fucking anime scene from your favorite slice of life or Bishoujo anime where it's raining flower petals in the anime opening. Don't fucking do that. This is something else that we probably need to respond rather harshly with and just say immediate public flogging of this person for doing that. Just beat their ass. Yes, it's harsh. Some people might even view it as cruel, but it is necessary to send the message, to make an example, to say this behavior is not tolerated, and it must stop. And it will stop. Some of them may even die, but it is a sacrifice I am willing to make. Reminds me of Snapchatters ruining flower fields to get clout pictures and videos in Denmark in 2015. Probably also something where they should have responded with public floggings. I am to the point now where we need public floggings for a lot of things. Slice of life, lol, yes.
Coverage completely ignores. China compressed 150 years of travel evolution into 30, and that compression created
That's
a
recipe for
generation
disaster.
with capital, but not context.
You can't expect to speed run this sort of thing and have it go well. It's just not.
In the early 1990s, Chinese citizens took roughly 4 to 5 million international trips per year. By 2024, that number grew nearly 30 times more in 30 years. To understand why this matters, you need context from the West. Travel culture in Europe and North America evolved over more than a century. It started with the Grand Tour of the 1700s, followed by Thomas Cook's organized tourism in the 1800s, and then post-World War II commercial flights really helped tourism blow up. And multiple generations passed down unwritten
And that
knowledge
makes the
about
going
how
great.
to behave in foreign spaces.
We laugh politely.
Things like airport etiquette, restaurant behavior, and hotel norms. It was a slow transmission of travel literacy. China compressed that entire arc into roughly one generation.
And it did not work. I'm sorry. You can't speedrun this shit. It takes time.
Chinese international travelers today are the first in their family to leave the country. There's no inherited playbook. No one taught them airport etiquette or restaurant norms. You're learning everything from scratch, in real time, in public, and under scrutiny. A wealthy American in 1955 had 3 generations of international travel experience baked into their family background.
And even back then, the concept of the ugly Americans, I think even they were better behaved than what you see with a lot of Chinese tourists these days. Media trying to argue they were just too young, gullible, and stupid, and that public reactions were being too harsh as if those people hadn't been young themselves. Yeah, that's still no excuse. Public floggings for all of them. I've maintained for many years that so many of the world's problems could be solved if the vast majority of them, probably even just taking that bottom 2% that Asmongold keeps talking about, but maybe not, they're just everybody. No one gets spared. Everyone gets a beating and an enema. Everyone. No one's spared. You get your ass beat, and you get an enema, and then you're sent on your way and told to behave yourself. Jeez, thanks, Paul. I mean, it's fair. It's fair and equitable. Truly equitable. Because everyone gets it. Even me.
And they likely even traveled as children. A wealthy Chinese person in 2005 often had none. And so they leaned into tour groups, but not entirely by choice. Until about 2010, individual tourist visas were not an option for most Chinese citizens going abroad. The default became big organized groups, 30 or 40 people on fixed routes. And for years, that was the only real option. And these groups became the dominant travel format for practical reasons beyond just visa requirements.
Yeah, and especially around Golden Week, it's just like the whole fucking country just goes on holiday and just moves around, not only mainland China, but all around the world.
Solved for visa logistics and unfamiliar systems. A group of 30 or 40 people handled collectively is easier than 30 or 40 individuals figuring things out alone.
Solo YOLO!
Trade-offs. A tour bus moves differently than a solo backpacker. 40 people coordinating in a crowded museum creates visibility, and visibility creates perception. And how these tours made money created their own problems. A lot of these discount tours to Europe are cheaper than one night in a mid-level Paris hotel. So the price works through wholesale, vendor commissions, and
$0 tourism is a scourge of the Chinese travel industry, but what is it? How can people avoid its many traps? Price gouging, boring tours, forced shopping, all tricks of the dirty tour trade. Yeah, it's all the old tricks. An enema, not even going to ask. Just Google it. Or, ask Grok or
Maxing
ChatGPT.
to the limit. A Chinese tour guide friend of mine in Paris walked me through how a typical tour runs. You're up before dawn to scarf down breakfast. Then, onto a bus. You get a rush stop at the Eiffel Tower. and
Really
2
is a
hours
cattle
at the
call.
Louvre. And if you've ever been there, you know that's impossible.
Yeah,
Comes
no,
at 6
you're not going to spend... The Louvre requires a day. That requires at least a day. Sort of like if you go to the, one of the National Gallery in London. It just... No. You got to make a day out of that. I think the best behaved Chinese tourists I've seen were in Friedrichshafen, southern Germany, doing the ham radio messe and Makers Fair in the old Zeppelin hangars. And all of those were ham amateur radio operators themselves. So they were all autists with manners.
Hour bus ride to a mid-Bordeaux winery with tourist gift shop traps along the way. You finish with a dinner at a Chinese restaurant and nap on the long ride back to prep for a Champs-Élysées shopping spree the next day. And the tour guides work on commission from those shops, so they're clearly incentivized to milk the tour groups. They hurry the group past the real sites, fib about museum hours, and improvise history to max out shopping time. So the format itself herds people into a stampede, because losing the group in a city where you can't read the signs is frightening. They press forward and skip the line because the bus pulls out on schedule, with or without them. And from the outside, that looks rude,
Jesus.
but from the inside, they're on survival mode. And tour operators generally provide logistics, but not cultural.
So maybe we have some flexibility. Maybe they need to just rework the business model to where they're not in survival mode all the time. And if they can't do that, maybe they just don't need to be in business. Maybe they just don't need to be in business.
Education. The trip was about getting you there and back, not about teaching you the unwritten rules of a country.
When visiting any country overseas, there are 5 phrases that you must learn.
The first wave of mass Chinese tourism hit global destinations with no playbook, and the behaviors that looked rude to Westerners often made perfect sense back home. So let's talk about what back home actually looks like, starting with stuff that generates the most viral outrage. And look, I'm going to be talking about the uncomfortable stuff because I'm not being honest if I skip them. Here's the thing, the Chinese cultural operating system is unique. Let's start with spitting. In much of rural China, clearing your throat and spitting was just normal. Think about the environmental context. You got cold winters, you got coal dust, heavy pollution, yellow dust up north, and cigarette smoke pretty much everywhere. Spitting isn't always considered gross.
Having been to China myself, and most of my time spent in places like Shanghai and Beijing, it gets pretty nasty. Shanghai was not so bad because at the time we had rain moving through, managed to wash out a lot of the nastiness from the air. A lot of it gets kind of blown out to sea. But Beijing, it all just settles in there. And it's all just this constant overhang of, looks like white fog or silt in the air. And it follows you all the way to the Great Wall of China. And if you do have allergies, like I do, you go to somewhere like Beijing, you are going to have a bad time. And spitting might seem normal for them, but it's disgusting. And it's unsanitary. And it's also very low-class behavior. And a lot of these people are kind of climbed socially and economically from the lower classes to something resembling the middle class. But they haven't quite learned the manners or the civilized behaviors of people of the middle class and above. They spit out chicken bones like a Gatling gun with bullets off the side of the table onto the floor. Also disgusting. Horrible table manners. Not visiting any big city in East or Southeast Asia, anywhere else, even America or here in Europe, unless it's a mostly preserved medieval city like Rothenburg or Ravensburg. Well, that's going to take most of that off the map for you then, Harold. You're closing yourself off to a lot of the world. It's still worth the trip. I'd say. It's just go in with eyes wide open.
It's actually considered healthy. You just need to get that stuff out of your lungs. And government's been running public
technically not wrong, but there's more polite ways to do it.
Campaigns against it for decades. But when something's been normalized across generations, policy and science can't change people overnight. Then there's the bathroom.
No, but mass flogging campaigns can. Also, yes, that's supposed to be a toilet in China. Allegedly.
Situation. Most Westerners don't realize this, but public sanitation infrastructure
Oh, they've got, yeah, I remember seeing this originally with Serpent ZA.
in rural China. Most Westerners don't realize this, but public sanitation infrastructure in rural China was basically non-existent until recently. In those areas,
And even then, it's probably questionable.
kids used whatever was available: fields, alleys, and buckets. Even today, plenty of public toilets in smaller Chinese cities are just holes in the ground with no toilet paper or soap.
One of my biggest fears being out in China is what is the next bathroom gonna be like? I hoard.
That was always a concern for me. And you know what, chat? I held it in like a champ. I basically waited until we got to something resembling a normal Western-style structure. Most of the time, though, I was just kind of holding it until I got back to the hotel. Because at least there, I knew that had indoor plumbing and that functioned properly. This is a country with a space program and nuclear weapons. Yes, Jan. Yes. Supposedly. Allegedly, they have a space program and nuclear weapons. And yet, can't seem to figure out something like indoor plumbing and basic sanitation in the countryside. Really says something about it. You can't speed run civilization. Basically, mid-level habits are more like medieval.
Many napkins.
And yes, I confirmed this when I went on tours in China and I had to bring my own toilet paper. Now picture those same people landing in New York or Paris, where the restrooms
Yeah, you're going to have to bring your own toilet paper. Failing that, hold it in till you get back to your hotel.
are cleaner than some restaurants back home. They can't read in New York or Paris, where the restrooms are cleaner than some restaurants back home. They can't read the signs, they don't know where the facilities are, and so they default to what they've always done. And the toddler thing, I've seen this one generate the most outrage. Back in the motherland, small kids wear open back pants instead of diapers, and when nature calls, an adult dangles them over a gutter or onto a tree. Norbert Elias called this the civilizing process. Habits like these get wired in early, and they take generations to fade.
They do.
Grown parents still do it.
This is why I say you can't speedrun civilization.
And in fact, before
these sorts of behaviors, they take time. They take time to get ingrained in the people to where you don't have to deal with this anymore. It's like they don't have to live like this. They don't have to live like savages and animals, but it's going to take time to get there.
These tourists went abroad, they first went to Hong Kong, and at that time, this was a major sticking point for the city. And Hong Kong's notorious for not having public washrooms at the time. So a lot of kiddos just went on the streets to the shock of everyone around. Now, I'm not saying this kind of thing is acceptable in Paris. I'm saying these aren't choices made out of disrespect. They're defaults programmed by a completely different infrastructure reality. And this next one catches almost everyone off guard. A no food sign at a park doesn't register because in China, signs are everywhere precisely because people ignore them. No spitting, no cutting, no honking. You don't see no spitting signs in London because people already don't spit.
Yeah.
But in China, people have built up an immunity to signs. So when abroad,
they see all of them as just suggestions, and there's no enforcement mechanism behind them. And unless you militaristically enforce this, Chinese of the here and now are they're just not going to understand, and they're not going to listen. It's still so ingrained that these are suggestions, and that there is greater cultural cachet from ignoring the signs. It's what you can get away with, not how well you can obey the rules. I believe the biggest uncivilizing forces in modern Chinese history has been Mao Zedong and communism, transition to a republic and civil wars that followed, and before that, the Qing dynasty. I would say so. It wasn't a great leap forward with Mao. It was, if anything, a great leap backwards, and we're all seeing the effects. The problem with Chinese tourism, that's all sort of second order consequences of the so-called Great Leap Forward and of communism and just all the other things that have visited themselves upon the Chinese.
A sign you can't even read is as soft as Charmin. Personal space is calibrated differently too. In dense Chinese cities, Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, the functional personal space bubble is much smaller than Western norms. Some researchers have estimated it to be 18 inches in China versus 36 inches in the West. When tourists are pushing up to you,
36 inches, no. More than that. 6 feet or more. Our bubbles are quite big here in the West, and we like to keep it that way. This right here, this just looks claustrophobic. And for people who've got, social anxiety and agoraphobia, this is terrifying to them.
They may literally not feel like they're in your bubble. In a noise meter, there's a literal term for it called 热闹, which literally means hot and loud, but it stands for good rambunctious energy. Lively conversations in Chinese restaurants means everyone's having a good time. But when this
you go over to, like what we see here with Paris, you go over to Japan, other more civilized countries, major no-no. You're expected to be quiet. The city is already loud enough as it is. We don't need you visiting yourself upon everyone else with your loud, noisy conversations and raucous behavior. And I'll also say this, there was actually, I think it was, The Atlantic that had an article that was basically saying, quiet is racist. I have it somewhere. I think I reposted it recently. Let me see. I think it was in News and Politics. Yeah, it was an Atlantic article. I can show it here. Some fucking Star Wars name here, Chito Gonzalez. Why do rich people love quiet? The sound of gentrification is silence. The sound of fucking civilization, advanced civilization, is silence. And people still don't like to talk about it, but constant loud noise is low IQ behavior. Toleration of constant loud noise, it is low IQ behavior. And it also contributes to a decline in cognition and IQ. So they're sort of revealing themselves. They say quiet is racist because apparently so many blacks and browns love to be loud about everything, love to make excess noise because apparently they can. They're basically saying that everyone who's not white is basically lower in IQ, but everyone who's not white in certain branches of Asian are just low IQ. This from Avid Cities, it is in fact true that one thing that seems to separate upper middle class whites from most everyone else is a very low tolerance for noise, yeah. I mean, you spend a fortune trying to get the home of your dreams. You want it to be in a quiet neighborhood. And you don't want your neighbors to be keeping up all night with a bunch of loud noise. It's the best reason to live in an upper middle class white neighborhood that I know of. In my experience, noise, less than crime, is the most pressing daily problem when you live in and very near lower income neighborhoods, yes. Because just like with broken windows policing, it always starts with the loud noise. It always starts with the little things. And then before you know it, that neighborhood has just become a murder capital and a haven for crime. It's human noise in black neighborhoods, conversations in the street, and homes and apartments are at a ridiculously high sound level. Music noise in Hispanic ones. Oh, yes. Especially that bloody awful... I just refer to it as like Mexican polka music with the accordions going. And dog noise and white ones. Yes, the dogs barking all night long. It's like, put a fucking muzzle on them. Mexican music is actually painful to listen to, even at low sound volumes. He's not wrong there. It is the music that the devil is going to pipe into elevators and stores in hell. But nothing is worse than the sound of dogs barking. Can't for the life of me understand how people can become so desensitized to that sound. I don't know either. Your dog keeps barking about something. Obviously, they think something's wrong, and you need to do whatever you can to quiet them down, get them out of that environment where they're not barking, keeping everybody up late at night. Or, you know what, here's a concept. You can't keep control of your animal. Maybe you just don't need to have that animal. But that's just me.
This volume calibration travels to a quiet Paris cafe or a Tokyo ramen shop, the mismatch is immediate because they bring literal hot and loud into the space.
Chinese tourist having a New Year's Eve dinner at a Japanese restaurant, February 2026.
Speaking of Tokyo's ramen shops, you can learn more about Japan's love-hate relationship with tourism here. And then there's the photo obsession. This one confused me like crazy until I understood what these photos actually mean in Chinese social dynamics. Sure, everyone
trying
takes
to gain
photos
face
and selfies, but the weird thing for me is that Chinese tourists always add an elegant pose that is completely unnatural. For these travelers, the photo is the trip. Back home, Everybody's keeping score. Your cousin Timmy posted Bali. Your uncle won't shut up about Tokyo. A shot with the Mona Lisa will say that you're a man of culture. You can afford to see the world.
Not
That
chucking
follows
deuces like
the
that, you
scoreboard.
won't.
And that's why you see tourists spending half an hour getting the perfect shot with the ridiculous pose.
Christ, that is so fucking annoying. The whole posing and all of that. It's like, just take the bloody photograph, man. Just take the fucking photograph and move on. Not everything has to be posed and choreographed and so fake and gay. Just take the fucking picture.
Foot traffic. That's why some will climb barriers, ignore rope stanchions, and risk damaging ancient sites. Because if you miss a shot, you've got nothing for the scoreboard. So a tour guide's 5-star review comes down to whether everyone got their WeChat-worthy flex. The whole day bends around that single deliverable. And of course, a tour's gotta get their WeChat shot too, hence the obnoxious matching group outfits and flags. Chinese tourists also have a fundamentally different understanding of what customer behavior means. In China's rapidly modernizing service industry, assertive customer behavior signals power and status. That means being direct about problems, speaking loudly to get attention, and expecting immediate response.
Yeah, and a lot of that, by Western standards, is incredibly déclassé behavior, incredibly boorish behavior. And they get over here, and they realize, no, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, and you are either going to treat the staff with the proper respect that they deserve because they've worked so hard trying to serve you and everyone else, or basically you're just going to be asked to leave. And I think a lot more people, a lot more establishments would do well to say, we don't tolerate that sort of behavior around here. You will behave yourself and you will treat us with respect, or we're throwing you out in the air. Try that in a diner at a truck stop in the south. Most Chinese tourists don't have, are not interested in something like that because that doesn't score them the upcomings on WeChat. But yeah, they step into a Waffle House and try that sort of behavior. The staff will go medieval on their ass, and deservedly so. The people who work at Buc-ee's are some of the nicest people you ever meet. Chinese tourists behaves the way they do to someone at Buc-ee's. The people in Buc-ee's are just going to ask them to leave. A lot of people working in hotels and restaurants here are the sons and daughters of wealthy parents. Most foreigners don't seem to get that. Migrants too, they think someone's serving you, they're lesser than you. Muslims especially bad in this regard. And it's all a very backwards way of thinking. Those are the people that you need to treat with the utmost respect. Yes, they are here to serve you, but you damn well better be good to them. Because those are the people that can spit in and fuck with your food. Those are the people that in another time in human history would be in the perfect position to poison you and kill you. That's sort of like the barber, for example. Napoleon very famously said the one person in the world that he places absolute trust in was his barber. Now, that was because the barber was the one that could get the closest to Napoleon, to touch him, to touch his hair, and to shave him. And anybody knows anything about classic straight blade razor shaving, those blades are sharp, and they have the potential not only to give you a very close shave, but a barber in that position has the perfect opportunity to just slit your throat and kill you right there. Shouldn't have to behave well because they're in a position to do something to you or your food, but because it's the right and proper thing to do. Yes, now, but a lot of that is born out of the fact that these are still people that can fuck with your food and make you sick, possibly poison you. That's, the core going back to earlier points in human history. And we built on that to the modern sensibility of we do that now because it is just simply the right and proper thing to do. But how we got there was a lot more violent and bloody, which again I think speaks to the point I was trying to make, that you can't speedrun civilization. People need time to get there. That's why I maintain that for much of the third world, we just need to turn off the internet. We just need to shut off all internet access for them because they're not ready for it. It is the equivalent of handing jet engines, nuclear reactors, and insert any other item of modern civilization and handing it over to people whose, some countries, their average IQ is literally on the level of slightly lower than an orangutan. I mean, do you really want to hand a nuclear bomb over to a fucking monkey? Absolutely not. No sane person would do that. And yet here we are, giving internet access to so much of the fucking third world. And what do we get for that? Millions, even billions of people running scams, causing trouble for people online, among other things that they do, to make everyone's lives in the first world absolutely miserable. It was a mistake to let the third world have such ready access to the internet. And you can argue all you want about how, oh, it's a civilizing force and it's good and they'll grow out of it. It's like, no, you can't speedrun civilization. People have got to get there on their own. And handing open internet access to the third world is like handing a nuclear bomb to a monkey. They're not ready for it. They may never be ready for it. And we in the first world need to sort of make our peace with that. Because frankly, there are whole swaths of whole continents, and certainly whole countries, that we could do without them having access to the internet. I am fine, for example, with all of India. The internet in India, turn it off. Turn it off and keep it off. They're especially not ready for it. JC Warlock, welcome in. It was a mistake to open up the smartphone market to Africa. Yeah, there's a lot of things that we send to Africa in the form of aid and everything else that has just been a massive mistake, and we need to stop. It'll save us money, it'll save us resources, and it'll save us a lot of headache. Those people, if they ever do get ready to join civilization, they can do so when they're ready. The third world and the masters of brown hordes do not have some sort of fundamental right to access to white people and predominantly white countries. They don't have any sort of universal right to access to us. I had to call the yellow card reporting line for medicine. The lady that answered was clueless. She was African sounding, gave me a number to call. It was a home office number for immigration. The lady that answered was also clueless, also African sounding. Now there's your DEI hires for you. It runs deep. The rot runs deep.
These kinds of behaviors are the markers of someone who matters. Customer assertiveness demonstrates that you have the economic weight to demand service. But internationally, this same behavior reads as rude, entitled Karen behavior.
It is.
Let me ask you something. How intelligent do you have to be to take a food order?
So the signals are completely flipped. Then there's mianzi, or face. When confrontation happens in public, face-saving dynamics can push toward escalation.
It's sort of like Izzat in India. People going thermonuclear over a small perceived slight. You put these two things that he's just talked about together and it becomes a toxic soup for absolutely toxic behavior.
Asian coffee incident started as a service dispute, but it escalated after public confrontation after the barista and the customer were both locked into a visible social conflict with everyone around watching. Now, throwing coffee at someone is wrong, but understanding why conflict escalates differently in different cultural contexts is the difference between a stereotype and an explanation. At the end of the day, a lot of this is different operating systems crashing into each other with no translator installed, and that's exactly what's starting to change.
That's a lot of fancy intellectual speak that just sounds like they're making excuses. I kind of call bullshit on this. It's not that at all. It's people who are behaving in an uncivilized manner and need to learn to act like civilized fucking people. And if they refuse to, the people that they are visiting this uncivilized behavior upon have every right to respond in a way that forces civilized behavior out of them in the future.
The third force is pure math, and it's both the reason the stereotype feels so real and the reason it's already starting to break down. Remember that 150 million scale? If just 1 in 10,000 of those travelers were troublemakers, approximately one bad apple in about 10 high schools, that would still mean 15,000 troublemakers getting their shenanigans put on blast on the internet.
15,000 people, that's still about the size of a small town. That's really all it takes. I mean, it really is true, that old adage, one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. That's all it takes. One ruins it for everybody. At Ketchy Gotto, welcome in. Happy July 4th. Happy July 4th to you as well. Here, restaurants and other places have a right to eject persons for the abuse of staff at any number of other reasons. Yes. Even the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group, one of the poshest, fanciest hotel brands and networks in the world. All the staff carry around a card that is their credo, their basic philosophy. I think it's like 10 points. But it all boils down to, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. But all of that said, if a customer is behaving in a very uncivilized manner and being abusive towards staff, even the staff of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group will tell that guest to leave. And they'd be totally justified in doing so. Because that, more than anything, the Ritz-Carlton is a respectable place with lots of respectable, important people coming through each and every day. And that sort of behavior, they don't deserve to have that visited upon them. And really, it's a good philosophy for everywhere you go. If it's not acceptable behavior at the Ritz-Carlton, if it's not okay at the Ritz, then it's probably not okay anywhere else. And you should behave accordingly. How much of a better world would that be if more people took that to heart? Where no matter where they go, they behave and conduct themselves as though they are setting foot into the Ritz-Carlton and treat every place that they go to like that. Whether it is their home, their workplace, another place of business, a restaurant, another hotel that doesn't happen to be the Ritz-Carlton, even if it is just the Premier Inn, or the Super 8, or the Hilton, or the petrol station, or the supermarket. How much better the world would be if we all just treated as though we're walking into the Ritz-Carlton. I'm probably asking too much of people. But gosh, that would be a lovely world to live in.
Internet. Meanwhile, the 150 million respectful visits go completely unreported. Nobody posts, look at all these Chinese tourists lining up patiently and saying thank you, because that's not a story. The result is a rude tourist stereotype that doesn't match the aggregate data, but feels true because the evidence is everywhere you look. And this is where the story usually ends. Viral videos reinforcing stereotypes. Rinse and repeat. Beijing knows its bad optics abroad.
Listen, stereotypes exist because there is at least one kernel of truth in them. And as long as that one kernel remains true, then the stereotype would exist. You want the stereotype to go away, change the kernel. Stop fucking acting like it. I know for some it's easier said than done, but that's what it takes. Japan's a bit like that. Can't smoke in the street, carry an ash pouch if you do find a spot. No eating and walking, only eat in particular spots. Yeah, you don't really notice it, especially in a place like Tokyo, but they've got designated smoking areas even out in public. There's one kind of rectangular area in front of Ikebukuro Station in Tokyo, and that's the designated smoking spot. Now, mind you, this is all open air. This is out in public. But that's the only place in public that you can smoke, in that area. Everywhere else, you're not allowed to smoke. And if the police catch you smoking in public anywhere else, you're going to be in trouble. Always try to be a gentleman, but some people make that impossible. Some people will make that impossible. And when they do, they need to feel the consequences of that. And with Singapore and chewing gum, yes, that's also a problem. People spitting out chewing gum. Nobody wants to step on that. Nobody wants to ruin their nice shoes, or even their not so nice shoes by stepping on that. Spit it into a rubbish bin. Take it out, wrap it in tissue, and put it in the rubbish bin where it belongs. Don't just spit it out on the ground wherever you are. You wouldn't do that in your home. If you do, we've got bigger problems here. Train and bus stops in our cities practically have the pavement covered in abandoned gum and cigarettes. Yeah, don't just stamp out your cigarettes on the ground. Nobody wants to step on that. I almost have this OCD aversion to stepping on cigarettes. I don't like doing that. I tend to step over the butts or anything whenever I see them when I'm out in public. Probably a bit weird on my part, but it's like, I don't like stepping on that. Just like I don't like stepping on chewing gum. And I shouldn't have to. Stub your cigarettes out in an ashtray. Whether it's in your vehicle or a public ashtray somewhere. Or keep some sort of pouch or something where you can store your butts and then empty it out later. Not wanting to step on stuff is normal. Oh. Thank you for helping me feel normal. Keep a napkin on you all the time, yes. Keep a little thing of pocket tissues with you. If you're old-fashioned like me, though I wouldn't say do this with chewing gum, but, keep a handkerchief on you. People used to carry handkerchiefs with them all the time. But handkerchiefs, pocket tissues, they don't take up much space in a pocket. Carry those with you. You need to spit out gum, spit it out into one of your pocket tissues. And then chuck it in the rubbish bin. Done and sorted. Civility died with our civilization and chivalry. Social society said so. Probably did, though I'd push back a little bit and say it's not dead. It's just lying dormant. we can go back.
and treats it as a national image problem. And they've responded in a way no country
Good.
has. They tried to legislate manners. Way back in 2013, the
I mean, that may be what it takes. Maybe what it takes for the Chinese, that they have to legislate this sort of thing. Legislation oftentimes comes as a last resort when people just won't fucking listen. Japanese always keep a personal handkerchief on them all the time. It's a good habit. It's a good habit. Especially with men part of your EDC. You should have a handkerchief on you.
government published a 64-page guide to civilized tourism, and the specifics tell you everything. Don't pick your nose in public, don't steal life jackets from airplanes, don't force white people to take
What
photos.
the fuck? Why the hell would you steal a life jacket from an airplane? That's fucked up, man. I think that alone, huge loss of face.
Of you. Flush the toilet after use. Don't leave footprints on toilet seats. And for those who didn't get
this is another thing. You don't stand on the fucking toilet. You sit on it. I know that you're probably coming from some place that's got fucking squat toilets everywhere. I don't know why it doesn't register with some people that they see the modern Western toilet and they don't see the shape of, oh, it's sort of chair-shaped. Oh, okay, I should sit in this like I would a chair. You're not going to put your feet on the seat of a chair and squat down that way. So why the fuck are you doing that with a toilet? Don't fucking squat with your feet mounted on the side of a toilet bowl. Open the lid, put the seat down, sit down, and have a pee and poo. Use toilet paper, flush it, go wash your fucking hands, and get the fuck out. Not difficult. It's called basic fucking toilet training. Give it a try sometime. Seriously. Fucking hell. I'm genuinely getting pissed off about this. I'm genuinely getting pissed off and crashing out about this. I know we talk a lot these days as a society about people crashing out over things. And a lot of it is crashing out over a lot of little things. I think, just this once, chat, I am justified in crashing out over people who can't seem to get going to the loo and having a pee and poo, not getting that right. I think I'm justified in crashing out over people not being able to get something so fundamental to human civilization and civilized adult behavior, getting that wrong. Lol, what a time to join. Welcome in, Cinevere. Thank you for checking in over on Rumble. Yes, we're talking about Chinese tourists and how they've been misbehaving when they're on holiday in places quite often, and how some of them seem to have a problem with basic toilet training. Today's class will teach you how to wipe your own ass. By the way, make sure everyone goes follow Cinevere on Rumble, follow on Twitch, and follow on YouTube, and also Kick, I believe. She's got a Kick account. Make sure to catch her streams. Make sure to catch her streams on other channels. Streaming multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day. And don't forget to catch her on side scrollers too.
That last one, it's because most people in China use squat toilets and don't know how to use a Western sitting one. These were mandates, not suggestions. The state was basically publishing a behavior manual, but advice wasn't enough, so they built a system with teeth. The tourist blacklist tracks citizens who behave badly abroad. A fight with airport staff?
This may be the one time I am in favor of a social credit system.
Blacklisted. Vandalize a monument? Blacklisted. Open an emergency exit on a plane because you're impatient? Blacklisted. If you get on that list, you can lose your ability to book flights, take high-speed trains, and even get certain jobs.
So, yeah, your social credit score just ends up in the toilet, figuratively and literally. Crazy, I don't know why people are like this all of a sudden. Oh, it wasn't... I mean, part of it was all of a sudden just so many people having the means to travel from China to international tourist spots. But it's also the thing that we've noticed here with this video is that they tried to speed run civilization in China, and it just hasn't worked out because you can't really do that sort of thing. Thank you, Rex. Honey, didn't need to do that. Oh, it's my pleasure.
Behavior in Rome will haunt your life back in Beijing. And this is kind of related to the Chinese credit system. So if you want to deep dive on that, please like and sub so that you'll see it when the video drops. citizens became legally required to act in ways that preserved national dignity while abroad. And for all intents and
It's you hear it on with a lot of the anti-Chinese propaganda, which I mean, if you had to sum it up, that's one way of putting it. Of the people who have a sort of clickbaity headlines about how it's like, oh, China's spying on their own citizens abroad and saying they're still subject to laws and everything. It's like, well, this might be the one time where it's kind of a good thing, especially if it gets them to behave themselves and not behave like an ugly tourist.
purposes. This public shaming component seems to work. The teenager who carved his name into that Egyptian temple became a national pariah overnight, and his family faced enormous social consequences. The incident embarrassed China, and the whole system made sure the country knew about it. No other government tells its citizens how to behave at buffets or reminds them to flush. But China looked at the soft power damage and decided, we're going to engineer our way out of this. And the problem is, the incidents are still happening.
You're not going to roll back the clock on civilization. You can't really do that. So, yeah, I guess it's just going to have to be social engineering from here on. It's funny, they've tried to social engineer their way through speedrunning civilization. Hasn't really worked out, so more social engineering on top of more social engineering. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it works.
But there are too many travelers, and their habits are locked, and social media is too fast. Change takes years, and millions of passports are issued every month. But
change takes years, sometimes decades, even generations, and yet we also live in a time, in an information age, where, especially in this decade, it feels like years are being compressed into months, and sometimes even decades being compressed into years. Something's got to give here. Something's got to give.
Shifting. Gen Z
got called Laowai a few times in China as a military region I was working, also Guilo. Heard it once over Tanoid while walking in a park, and people started approaching me. Very weird. Yes, in my time in China, I was never directly called to my face a Laowai or a Guilo. I even noted that to our tour guide, and he was just like, "Yeah, I'm not sure. I forget which one is considered the most offensive. I want to say Guilo is supposed to be considered the more vulgar or offensive term for foreigner, especially referring to white foreigners. In a lot of Chinese restaurants, they'll tilt over their shoulder, just spit straight on the floor next to the table. Lol. Yeah, it's gross. That's disgusting behavior. And smoking is banned indoors. They all still do it and hide it under the table, just when authorities aren't looking. Yes, when I arrived in Shanghai, our hotel was supposed to be a non-smoking hotel. Signs everywhere, in the lobby, in the hallways, no smoking. And yet, what do you see when you get out of the lift onto your floor to go to your room? You see a rubbish bin with a public ashtray on top. And people have stubbed out their cigarettes in the hallway, and you can still smell the smoke. Which, I suppose in a roundabout way, at least they might be taking heed of the signage and, quickly stubbing out their cigarettes after they have made the faux pas of smoking in a place that is a non-smoking area. I don't know, man. I'm tired, boss. Guilo means foreign ghost. Okay, that sounds familiar. Thought it was white devil. Maybe perhaps roughly translated might? I don't know. But foreign ghost man makes sense.
He overwhelmingly prefers FIT, free independent travel, over the group tours that defined the first wave. Nearly 2 out of 3 young travelers now book independently. No tour bus, flags, or packaged itinerary. And they're going to different places. Search interest for Uzbekistan more than doubled. Azerbaijan, Georgia, Central Asian destinations.
Oh, that's all right. That can be somebody else's problem then. Though, I don't know. Kind of the smart choice, and maybe a bit of doing the whole hipster bit of getting off the beaten path. I mean, never been to Uzbekistan, Azerbaijan, but I don't know, could be interesting. We may have to look up some videos sometime about traveling there. Most apartment and parking lot elevators tend to smell of piss and cigarettes. Brother Tobias likes to joke it smells French. Hmm. Hotel I stayed in was a 5-star. That's where the American execs I worked for stayed, but the workers I was with stayed in a different region, quite segregated. Also makes sense, that tracks.
Since the tour group era barely touched, the opposite of the Eiffel Tower selfie circuit. The younger ones are
No, that's
digital
good.
natives.
That's actually refreshing. And something I oftentimes recommend. It's like, yeah, great, go to Paris, see the Eiffel Tower, see the Louvre, all of that, but it's like, so much more to France. So much more to Europe. And let's face it, everybody else is going to those places. And yeah, if you got the money and the time to do it, go there, check it off the bucket list, whatever. But big, beautiful blue world out there. So many more places to see. Maybe instead of Paris, consider Prague. Or go to Warsaw. Or hell, do like the young Chinese hipster Gen Z types and go to Uzbekistan and go to Azerbaijan. Trod the road less traveled, as it were. Worked in Azerbaijan, both the Baku side and the Nakhchivan side. Southern France infinitely better than northern France. I mean, that is that whole image and brand of the south of France. It's, yeah, almost paradise. But even the French countryside, there's something rather romantic about all that. And plus, it's wine country. It's cheese country. That's where the good stuff's made. Yeah, sure, you can get it in Paris, but they're going to charge you a markup for it. Probably not going to be as good. Go to the source.
They do TikTok dances and root for the Lakers and Rockets. My Chinese grad school friends find the tourist stereotype so cringe that when they hear Mandarin abroad, they'll answer in English. And that's the answer to the earlier question, how can both be true? The stereotype is based on patterns from a decade ago. The first wave, the tour groups, the highest friction moments. But that wave is receding. And the positive ratings in the data is the current reality the stereotype hasn't caught up to. But the reputation lag creates a paradox. The destinations complaining loudest about Chinese tourist behavior are also the ones competing hardest to attract them. Now remember those American tourists from the 1950s? That wasn't just a YouTube hook, it's the actual pattern.
The universal
Everything I've described,
okay.
the friction, the stereotypes, the eventual adaptation has happened before, multiple times, with different countries. In the 19th century, British tourists with new industrial wealth flooded continental Europe, and local populations mocked them as uncultured nouveau riche. Same pattern, different century. From the 50s to the 80s, there was the ugly American tourist. Loud, culturally insensitive, throwing money around without understanding local norms. And that's what I saw when I stayed at Hong Kong Stanley, where my relatives ran a tourist gift shop. It's literally the same complaints for a different country. Then the Japanese tourists in the 80s and 90s were known to be camera-clicking, group-traveling, and flag-following people who bought luxury goods in bulk. The stereotype...
Yes, but at least they were fairly well behaved about it all. I think the only annoying thing was they were wanting to take pictures of absolutely fucking everything, and it's like, brother man, just soak in the moment, you know, just take in the moment personally. Don't have to document everything, and just take it in, enjoy it, you know, let it. Just see what sort of effect it has on you personally. It's almost like admiring art. You know, you talked about earlier taking the selfie with the Mona Lisa to just prove how cultured you are. Any idiot can do that. It's the person who, not necessarily the Mona Lisa, but any work of art in any sort of art museum, going there, not there to take a selfie or to, get upcomies and goodbye points on social media, but to just sort of take it in and appreciate art for its own sake, to see what sort of emotional resonance or reaction you can have in the presence of a work of art. That is how art is meant to be appreciated. Too many people have forgotten that. And perhaps with these younger generations, the choice to go off the beaten path, the choice of a more minimalist life, the choice to even get offline as much as they can and stay offline, perhaps that's a sort of reversion to the mean that we need as a people, as a society, to get back to appreciating things like a beautiful work of art. Perhaps there is hope for the future. And perhaps as the song goes, the kids are all right. Burning the money once it's your legal tender, it's actually doing their country a favor by decreasing inflation. Maybe. I don't know.
Was everywhere, and it faded as Japanese travel culture matured over 2 generations. The pattern is universal. Wealth leads to
Yeah.
mass travel.
If someone's a Japanese tourist, you would never know it unless you ask them. It's like, who are you? Where are you from?
Mass travel leads to cultural friction, and cultural friction leads to stereotypes. Stereotypes that fade as people figure out travel etiquette over a couple of generations. China is currently following the exact same curve. But here's what makes China's version different from every country that came before. And the numbers tell you why. Chinese tourism
Bigger bell
contributed
curve?
significantly to global economic impact in 2024. Domestically, the sector supported 82 million jobs in China alone, roughly Germany's entire population hired in one industry. For destination countries, Chinese tourist spendings pay for hotels, restaurants, and retail. Countries like Australia, France, Thailand, Japan, and Korea's tourism recovery over the past 2 years tracks directly with Chinese visitor volume returning post-COVID. And the policy tells a story. More than 50 countries have introduced visa-free access for Chinese tourists since 2023.
Yeah, a lot of people may not realize it, but I mean, especially if you have a US, UK, EU passport, other countries don't really enjoy this all that much. It's not enough to have a passport. You have to have a visa for entry. And we're not talking about the credit card. And that's how a lot of times immigration systems used to work for tourists. You had to have some sort of tourist visa to come in. Unless there's some sort of visa-free program set up between countries or between blocks of countries. And it's why you have certain ranking systems now in the world that rank passports in terms of how much visa-free travel access do they have. Some passports are an absolute joke, but then others, such as an EU passport, UK, US, Japan, to a certain extent, I think China, though, I think they're still way down on the list. All of it ranked in terms of how many countries do you have visa-free travel privileges.
But here's what destination countries won't say publicly. Chinese tourism is beyond an industry. It's a strategic lever. Beijing can turn the tap on and off depending on diplomatic relations, and destination economies feel it immediately. Japan is the clearest example. Ginza's
Yes, and they
luxury
use it as a
retail
weapon
runs on
constantly.
Chinese spending. But when tensions flare for whatever reason, the numbers drop overnight because China wills it. Group tour approvals slow down, anti-Japanese social media speed up, charter flights get rescheduled. China lets its money do the talking. The playbook repeated with South Korea during the THAAD dispute, with the Philippines over South China Sea claims, tourism as a leverage. And it works both ways. When Chinese tourists feel unwelcome or unsafe somewhere, whether it's real or perceived, they redirect. Thailand's seen this. A few high-profile incidents with some viral videos of mistreatment and bookings collapse. The market punishes destinations that don't manage the relationship carefully. So when we talk about Chinese tourists, it also means geopolitical forces. Their presence brings revenue. Their absence.
They're just, to me, that kowtowing to the Chinese just encourages more of that bad behavior. I tend to look at it as they are your problem children customers. And the best thing you can do is just cut them loose. You can make up the difference somewhere else. Nothing of value is truly lost. That's my thinking. It does you no good to keep kowtowing, keep capitulating to these people. Nothing good can come out of that. And if the government's just going to use tourism dollars as a weapon, it's the old Pareto principle. 80% of your revenue is going to come from 20% of your customers, your best customers. Conversely, 80% of your headaches are going to come from another 20% of your customers. Best to take that particular 20% and just cut them loose. Just fire them. Danish summer vacationists can be punished by destinations like Bali or Thailand if they don't behave well, so a lot of people here will correct our fellow countrymen abroad. Yeah, you've got to take... You got to take a swift attitude towards this sort of thing. Just like broken windows policing. You don't stop it with the little things, eventually the whole place is just going to turn into a shithole.
Brings recession. The customer flow is both carrot and stick. And no government has figured out how to take the money without taking the friction. But there's a bigger question underneath.
Don't take the money.
Is global tourist norms just Western tourist norms
don't
that
take...
everyone else is expected to follow? Who
Even if it were, so what?
decided what polite looked like? And who had...
We did, because we are the people who civilized the world. And we are the people who through hard power and even soft power act as a civilizing force to everyone else. It's another roundabout way of saying might makes right. And the world does not care if it is fair or proper. It's just the way it is. And you can either deal in reality, or you can try to go this sort of deconstructionist route, which I think he's starting to go, but you only do so to your detriment, because eventually you start just tearing everything down for its own sake. And what do you get out of that? Justification to inshitify everything and turn everything else into a shithole, or another version of a Brazilian favela. Carrot and stick has got to be one of the world's most misunderstood sayings. Perhaps so.
To learn rules they never wrote. I'm not saying the friction isn't real. What I'm saying is this: the rude Chinese tourist story is the wrong frame. The frame that actually explains the pattern is the universal first generation.
I think it's in dealing with the here and now, it's still rude. It's still rude. It's still unacceptable. And a lot of these people that are on the receiving end of that rudeness, they don't give a shit about the universal tourist evolution over 150 years. They don't have the time or the inclination to ponder those sorts of deep topics. They've got a business to run. They've got bills to pay. They have lights that need to be kept on. They've got people in their lives that are depending on them. And they've all got to keep themselves fed and clothed and sheltered. They don't have time to trouble themselves with deep macro thoughts about the universal tourist evolution over the past 150 years. They want to serve other people with a good product or service. They want those customers to behave themselves. And they would just like to have a good day without some fucking Chinese tourists coming in, yelling and screaming, and lording it over everybody else, and, you know, thinking that they're better than everyone, and just behaving like animals when they don't get their way. Most people do not fucking care about the universal tourist evolution over 150 years. They just want people to fucking behave themselves and not be a fucking animal.
Traveler cycle, one every wealthy country has gone through. The West did this too, it just forgot. And if the pattern holds, here's a question worth asking.
I don't think we
Who's
did.
Next? The obvious candidate is India. It's
God
got all
help
the same
us.
specs that China had: a huge
God
population,
help us all.
a fast-growing middle class, and an economy on track to be the third biggest in the world by 2035. And hundreds of millions have never
And
gone
most of it's
abroad.
fake and gay.
So we'll run this exact same story again in a decade, just with a different flag on screen.
And with, I would say, with worse people. We're going to stop it there.